So some people say that I'm crazy when I tell them that my dog Starbuck knows that I love him just by looking at me. But guess what? It's true. Science has proven that dogs are so intelligent that they know that we love them just by looking at us or listening to us telling them how much they mean to us. But it only works if we say it to them in the right way. So here are 8 different ways that you can tell your dog or dogs that you love them in a way that they understand. 1. Praise your dog in a baby voice. Have you ever caught yourself doing a baby voice with your dog? I honestly do it with Starbuck all the time. And well, it turns out that he probably does understand it and does actually like it. An interesting study took a group of dogs and had them lie in an MRI scanner. As they did, their owner praised them in different tonal pitches. And when they praised them in a high-pitched baby tone of voice, saying phrases like, "good girl," or "good boy," the reward sites in both the right and left side of their brains lit up, indicating that they both understood it and liked it. However, you've got to be careful. When the owners switched to using fake gibberish words, the reward sites in the dog's brains did not light up, indicating that dogs can recognize real praise from fake praise. It turns out that they aren't so easy to trick after all. 2. Scratch your dog behind their ears. Have you ever noticed that your dog likes it when you scratch them behind their ears? I noticed that Starbuck did and wondered, why does he love it so much? And it turns out that it's because that is where their pituitary and hypothalamus glands are. These glands help regulate our dog's moods by releasing hormones, including endorphins. And so when we scratch our dogs behind their ears, these glands release endorphins in them, which relaxes them and makes them feel happy. And as a bonus, when we spend time with our dogs, it releases endorphins in us too, making us relaxed and happy, and even lowering our blood pressure, which is pretty important because it actually helps us with the next one on this list. 3. Smile at your dog every day. So it's pretty crazy, but dogs are so smart that they can recognize human facial expressions. And a fascinating study proved it. They took 17 dogs of a variety of dog breeds and gave them a test. On a screen, they showed them photos of happy and unhappy human faces and happy and unhappy dog faces. And as they did that, they also played either the sound of a happy or unhappy human talking or a happy or unhappy dog barking. And well, the dogs would stare at the screen much longer if the tone of voice or bark matched the facial expression that they were seeing on screen. It was remarkable because it was the first time a study showed that a species other than humans was able to recognize facial expressions of another animal species. And so when you're scratching your dog and their happiness is so infectious that it's making you smile, they can see it and they feel loved even more. 4. Take your dog on a sniffy walk. Walks are an amazing way to bond with your dog because walks are usually most dogs' favorite part of the day. However, if you want them to feel loved, you've got to do it in the right way. You see, most people think that dogs love walks because they get to exercise. And while it's true that most dogs do love exercise, the main reason why they love going for a walk is they get to sniff lots of interesting smells. And dogs love sniffing so much for 2 reasons. The first reason is because their noses have up to 10,000 times the sense of smell that we have. Dogs can learn a lot about the world around them just by sniffing. But the second reason is because when they sniff, it triggers the olfactory receptors in their nose. This then sends a signal to their brain's limbic system, which is the part of the brain that regulates emotions and memory. The limbic system then releases endorphins, making them feel relaxed and happy. And so if you regularly take your dog out for a walk and you let them sniff, they will come to associate these feel-good endorphin hormones with you and feel loved by you. 5. Personally feed your dog each day. Now I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well gee Sarah, this is pretty obvious. Of course dogs like food, so they'll like whoever gives it to them, right? But it's actually much more important than that. Food is a very unique way that we can express love for our dogs because an interesting study showed that dogs are unable to reciprocate it. First, the study trained 37 dogs and taught them that if they pressed a button, they would be given a treat. Then they placed these dogs behind a fence and a person sat on the other side with the button. Because the dogs knew that if you pressed the button, they got a treat, they'd usually beg the person behind the fence to please, please, please press the button. Then they switched it up and instead gave the dog the button. But now, when the dog pressed the button, it wasn't them that got the food. Instead, it was now the person behind the fence. And guess what? All of the dogs lost interest in pressing the button, even if the person had pressed it a lot for them. The study showed that dogs instinctively know that it is us that gives them food and it's not the other way around. And so, if you can personally give them at least one meal or treat each day, that is a special act of love that only you can do exclusively for them. 6. Gaze into your dog's eyes. So almost all animals, including dogs, find it very intimidating when a human gazes into their eyes. However, there is one exception for dogs, and that is when someone that they love does it to them. You see, studies have shown that when you gaze into the eyes of your dog, oxytocin, the love chemical, is released in both you and your dog, bonding you both together. And this is actually very remarkable because the same study was performed on wolves that are kept as pets, and the results were drastically different. Despite wolves sharing 99.9% of dogs' DNA, when their owners gazed into their eyes, oxytocin was not released in them. They still found it uncomfortable. It seems then that after living with us for thousands of years, dogs have noticed through domestication that when we gaze into the eyes of our children, that it's an act of affection and it's not an act of aggression. And so now they also like it too, because they have learnt the true meaning behind it. 7. Play with your dog and let them win. So while dogs are all different, most dogs love to play games like tug. However, some people have a strange idea that you should never let a dog win at tug. They say that you shouldn't let a dog win at tug because if you do, they're gonna feel like they're dominating you. But actually, the opposite is true. Diana Santos, lead instructor at the Dog Sport University, calls the experience of playing and letting your dog win at tug shared holding. You can see this shared holding experience when I play tug with Starbuck. When I play tug with him and let him win, he gets excited, shakes it, and runs around with it. And as Diana says, this is him celebrating his win, and it makes him feel more confident and happy in himself. But then, after he has celebrated, he makes the choice himself to come back and ask me to play a game. And then on the flip side, he can see that when he does that, that I then make my own choice to play with him too. It is a shared activity, and so rather than making them feel dominant, it instead bonds them to us and it makes them feel loved. 8. Lean up against your dog. So every dog is different, and there are some dogs that of course don't like this, but most dogs instinctively like to lean up against people that they consider family. And that is because their ancestors, the wolves, left this in their DNA. Wolves are social pack animals, and when resting, they also like to lean up against each other as an act of affection. And so if your dog also likes to do this to tell you that they love you, gently leaning back when they do it is a simple but easy way to say, I love you back. Aren't dogs just so amazing? So if you love dogs as much as I do and want to learn how to understand them more, then please subscribe. Starbuck and I really do genuinely appreciate your support, and we will see you in the next video.